UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena. Are they extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers in origin, or are they simply a result of top-secret military black projects, false flag alien invasion psyop, drones, or other human-made aircraft? Join UFO historian Don Ecker, MUFON State Director for New York Chris DePerno, retired veteran pilot Commander Cobra, and well-esteemed host and researcher Martin Willis as they discuss the latest news and topics regarding UAPs with a no-holds-barred approach on UAP Crossfire.
Well, hello, greatest audience on the planet. Welcome to UAP Crossfire. Commander Cobra here with the glasses that I will explain in a moment. There'll be a couple eyeglass changes, some wardrobe changes, so to speak, for me during the show tonight. But these glasses are to signify something I'll get to in a second. My great co-hosts, Chris DePerno, Don Ecker, Martin, are all here tonight. Once again, we have not had a live show together in a bit, so we were all excited, sort of sorority girls in the warm-up before the show. A little body talk was being thrown around. You can see by the guilty looks and smiles on their faces, they're trying to be discreet, but let's just say that it was a fun warm-up getting ready to go. First and foremost, I want to talk about very quickly the significance of this day 80 years ago, the start of the pushback on the continent in Europe, D-Day, the immensity of that. Obviously, none of us here are old enough to know much about it, but we probably, looking at our ages, knew people that were in that greatest generation that served either on the battlefront or the home front. And D-Day was an incredible event. I'd say that if I was to pick a movie or description, and there's some great ones out there. There are many, many great movies about D-Day. It is the scenes that I would say that in the Band of Brothers, where they show, when they get to that part of the series where they show that entry, because they had a couple other combat engagements before that. And Dick Winter's book and his memoirs are probably some of the best reading for the Army Airborne and what happened there. It's a great story. I'm sure we all have a personal one. I'll let everyone talk about in a second. But D-Day, and no irreverence to D-Day, but I did throw out a title of Operation Overlords as kind of a link that people would know that I realized the date that we were doing this particular show. Other thing I wanted to bring up was this past weekend, I was in the great clutches of Bill and the gang that he had assembled for Pine Bush. We had a great get-together. As typical with Bill, as I'm rolling in, he wasn't sure if he was going to see me till Saturday morning. Traffic worked out. I was able to get there, and bingo, there I was. And we're having campfires and phone calls, and we're having live chats with people. And he had a great group of people that were assembled at the house. And for everyone that listens, if you get a chance, please go to ERRT Radio. Ron is a longtime friend through Bill. He runs his own series of programs. I've tried to do shows with him in the past. I'm going to do another one with him hopefully sometime in the month of June. He's a great character. It's always fun. We have a lot of fun with him. He does a lot of great stuff. He does a lot of great stuff with people that work and do support stuff in KJRA, so keep that in mind, please. And since things are going to go down the list, we need to salute that the Starliner, thankfully, safely made it up to the space station today. Word is that our own Skywatcher was live streaming the docking at the International Space Station, and I'm glad to see that ship has finally reached the heavens, and we safely got the astronauts to the position at the space station, and we're hopes and prayers for a successful recovery, and that program starts to pick up speed and gets onto a regular basis. And I'm always going to point out SpaceX, another phenomenal flight today with their incredible ship that will hopefully take us to Mars, and hopefully take us to Mars in all of us here present's lifetime. I still like to think that that's going to happen. I'm going to see, I won't get to Mars, but I'd like to see people get to Mars. before I slip the mortar coil. So I hope that is something that happens. And who knows? Maybe between now and then, we'll slip some information and we can maybe have a different technology to make that interplanetary travel a little bit easier. So last thing, because of the way we run the show tonight, I want to just say to everyone early, because probably the way we always end the show is kind of like a mosh pit, of activity when we get to the end of the show. But we always have a lot of fun towards the end, but I always like to try to get in there. God's peace to everyone, which surpasses all knowledge and understanding. And times really lead to that. I'm going to pose one question at the beginning of the show. I'd like to get the reaction of my co-host as we get into the discussion. Our primary topic tonight is going to start out with Colonel Karl Nell, United States Army retired. Very interesting character. Chris is the one who turned me on to it. I put some stuff out, but we have a whole potpourri of fun stuff. Do you remember potpourri as one of the categories occasionally on Jeopardy?
Is that how that's pronounced? Have I been pronouncing that wrong my whole life?
Maybe.
Yeah, I could be.
How did you pronounce it?
I always thought it was potpourri.
Potpourri. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Is it a pate, John, or is it a potty, John? I don't know. Is it parrot or parade?
Or we could say, who gives a shit? Or
you could say it that way, which is very eloquent speech as well.
Thank you.
As always, from the West Coast, Don Ecker with the let's get real and let's get real fast.
Oh, Don, you're the best.
There is. It's truly, when you say that, that is the truth. Why am I using these glasses? Alexandre, I'm using these glasses to protect my identity, as well as these glasses I wore at the Pine Bush UFO Paranormal Festival this past weekend, where Bill Skywatcher lives. I was invited as a guest to Bill Skywatcher's palatial establishment on the upper Hudson River. And I was told, not by one, but by two very nice ladies, I was rocking these glasses when they saw me in these glasses. So that's where we're starting out. Don, please, Don, a little composure, please. You know that I'm rocking these glasses. So hopefully, Alexandria, that explains why I'm wearing these glasses, I try to protect my identity. I'm going to be changing glasses through the course of the evening. So I'm going to swing it around to all of you. Chris, we'll end up with you. Start with Don, followed by Martin, going to Chris. Don, it's been a while since I've seen you. How are things?
Well, I'll tell you, they're pretty good. Finally, we have some sunny Southern California weather, and it's glorious. I got to tell you, I live for the sun. My birth sign or my astrological sign is Leo, and in my case, it's very true. I crave the sun, and for months, we've really had crappy, unseasonably chilly California weather, but it's changed. Now, to get back to D-Day, you said we all probably, our age group, knew people that were there. I certainly did. As a matter of fact, my father, excuse me, was in I believe he said, the third wave going into Utah Beach. And he made it across Europe until December of 44. He wasn't at Bastogne, but when the Germans launched Operation Watch on the Rhine, the D-Day, or the Battle of the Bulge offensive, he was up near Brussels, and they started hustling those guys down because nobody knew if they were going to break through. They didn't know that the Nazi army, the Germans, were basically running on fumes, their armored corps, their trucks, and stuff like that. Nobody really knew that they were as short on gasoline as they were. And their intent was to capture American fuel depots to replenish their tanks. However, the 101st Airborne had a different idea, okay? And they ran into a real rampaging bull there. And thank God they did, because basically, and let me just boil it down for you, the Krauts shot their wad. And if they would have saved all that equipment for the Red Army, okay, instead of wasting it on the Western Front, well, it would have been their Eastern Front, our Western Front. Things might have been different, but they weren't. So there.
And of course, we all know that big part for that Battle of the Bulge was to attempt to bring the breakthrough technologies that the Germans were very close to having, which included an intercontinental ballistic weapon that they planned to use against North America. So
yeah,
a lot hung on that. Martin,
Yo.
you look resplendent in your colors.
Well, thank you. I chose them just for tonight.
Nice shirt, Martin.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you all.
We do like to comment on fashion. We're comfortable with each other enough to comment on fashion.
I know. The haircut, though, I'm telling you. You know, I got to tell you a funny story about this haircut. I was almost lost all my hair in the haircut because the guy usually cuts my hair in 5 minutes and he's done, and it's decent every time, you know. And then somehow he brought up something that made me say, "Oh yeah, by the way, I do a show on UFOs." He goes, "Oh my God!" So he kept cutting my hair and talking to me, and then it was almost all gone. It's just barely, coming back now.
This is when we tell the audience that this is a full contact, that you really have to give something to do some of this work,
Yes.
to do this show.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of hair to give either, if you might have noticed.
But Martin's willing to risk his hair, his follicles, for this show and for all this audience. That's why you truly are the greatest audience on the planet. You look great, though.
Well,
whatever
thank you,
you've
man.
done,
Thank you.
Whatever you've done, you look great.
I started playing pickleball. That's what it is. I love it. I don't know if any of you ever.
I am familiar with
what
the
it
game.
is.
I've had a number of friends. I played it once. It seemed like a lot of fun. I'm more of a badminton guy because I can drink and do badminton.
Oh, badminton. Yeah.
I can't drink and do pickleball. It's obvious that that's going to cause a problem.
It could. But anyway, life is good here.
Excellent. And are you going to Snowbird rotate north?
That's correct. Within a couple of weeks, I'll be up in the New England area.
Excellent.
And we should do a show together sometime.
Yeah, we'll get together. We'll do a show together. We'll do a live simulcast out of your place or something.
Sounds awesome.
And Don, if you ever come up to Buffalo, New York, we'll sit down and do a show together there too.
Well, my dream is this: in the course of between now and the end of 25, that I will get up to see Chris and Don on one of the nights to do a show. Of course, Don's going to be the long pole in the tent. God, talk about inappropriate language, right? Don's always the long pole in the tent.
Oh God,
Chris, how about you?
I want to know, why do people go to Buffalo? Is there? It's
called grandchildren.
Oh yeah. No, but I mean, no. Is there? And I'm not being facetious. I mean, what is there some type of tourist thing there?
Yeah,
the Great Lakes,
you heard of the wonderful Niagara Falls? The honeymoon.
That's where that is. Oh, I've been there.
See, they go on the American side to get robbed, and then they go on the Canadian side where they can actually enjoy it. So
and get censored. They get censored over there too.
Yeah.
How about
so
that?
I mean, that's why people come to Buffalo is for Niagara Falls. They in all honesty now, they really light it up. It is beautiful. You can take a boat tour under the falls, the Made of Mist. You got to wear a raincoat, but it really is a sight that you should see in your lifetime.
Is that where that Inch by Inch? Isn't that movie saying about Niagara Falls? Boy, no one gets the reference. Maybe I'm just too old.
Inch by Inch or whatever. I don't know.
I thought that was the one about hunting a lion.
Hunting.
I don't know. We were really digressing. We're digressing seriously.
Is that the
now,
one
before I died,
I
go to San Antonio and see the Alamo. That's been my lifelong dream. I want to see the Alamo.
You're going to be disappointed, but it is a cool place to go.
That's an interesting way to put it.
And Walt Disney,
Well, when you see pictures of the Alamo, you think that all the area around it is, open. It's not. Everything, it's all encroached around it. I mean, they did a great job preserving the Alamo. I mean, it's very important to, U.S. history, Texas history, obviously. But I was disappointed when I just saw the encroachment.
Well, if
Wow.
it wouldn't have been for the Daughters of the Texas Revolution, that might have been
So,
gone.
are we talking about the garden song, Martin, Inch by Inch?
No, it's a vaudeville. Slowly I turn,
Yeah, slowly
inch
I
by
turn,
inch.
step by step, inch
Yeah,
by inch.
Niagara Falls. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
so I don't know why I went there. I'm sorry. I
It's
apologize.
beautiful, Martin.
Yeah.
It really is. You should come up and enjoy it.
And the falls are really nice too, Martin. Your rendition of Inch by Inch was heart rendering, and I have tears under my alien eyes.
Yeah.
Christopher, how are you?
I'm doing great. I just want to say a quick thing about today. I watched the memorial on television for D-Day, Omaha Beach, and it really brought tears to my eyes because, I mean, you have to understand this generation that went there, being in one of those landing crafts, hitting the beaches, knowing that you have a 90% chance you're going to die on that beach. And I'm going to steal one of Don Eckert's lines. They are the most toughest sons of bitches generation there was. These guys, are true heroes of the American country. They knew they were going to die. Most of them were going to die, and they went there and did the job. And just to see those hollow grounds was just absolutely amazing to see rows and rows and rows of crosses of French soldiers, American soldiers, English soldiers that died on that beach. And
Canadian. Don't forget the Canadian, Chris.
Yep, and Canadian that died on that beach. There's nothing bad you could say about them. They went into hell, true hell, and they came out a winner. So kudos to them. And everything else. Great.
I'll tell you a little story real quick. It's very quick, but a bunch of Canadian airborne paratroopers landed in there, had contact with SS troops, and they were overpowered and overwhelmed. Okay. The Nazis took them prisoner. And then those SS sons of bitches executed all of them. Well, let me tell you what. The Canadian Army did not forget that. And there weren't too many SS taken prisoner after that. And it was unbelievable, but that's what you were dealing with back in those days.
Well, I'm going to end the discussion with this. I remember you brought it up, Commander, about Dick Winters talking in Band of Brothers. There was a line in there that really was unbelievable. A subordinate comes to Dick Winters and says, "Oh my God, we're surrounded." And Dick calmly looks at him and goes, "We're paratroopers. We're supposed to be surrounded."
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that because I want to get to the UFO stuff. But these guys are really, truly heroes. I mean, you can't take anything away from these guys that were in wheelchairs and stuff that was on television today.
Now, I heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but one of the veterans passed away on the way.
Sure did. I just was reading it before we came on air.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, they're like late 90s, and one was even over 100, I believe, right?
Yeah.
We're burying one in here in New England and Massachusetts.
And you know what, Martin? When the national anthem was being played, when they were asked to salute, they got out of their wheelchairs. They stood up and they saluted at that age, and nobody expected that.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, that was
pretty moving.
Amazing sight to see.
Yeah.
They had an interesting thing I heard this morning as I was heading into the base. Over 2,000 French high school students were in an auditorium or at the presentation when the names and these veterans that made it to the beach earlier today when they arrived, and they gave them a standing ovation, and it was pretty incredible. I mean, obviously, if you live and grow up around Normandy, that's you're going to know that history because of the locality. But it was very touching to hear that, and very reaffirming to hear that part. But Chris, let's shift gears to our UAP side. You got me turned on to Colonel Karl.
Yeah,
Now,
he's pretty cool.
Let's give the audience a little breakdown on the good Colonel.
You know what? There's a better way of doing it. Let's roll the first video, and then
Wow, what a segue! It's almost like I had talked to you in the car driving home tonight, and we had worked this out. Amazing.
What I consider to be one of the most consequential questions of our lifetime, which is, are we alone in the universe? And I'm very lucky to have Karl Nell here joining me for this conversation. Karl, thank you so much for coming. And Anthony and AJ over at SALT, thank you so much for hosting this. So, Karl, maybe to begin, can you share a little bit about your background, who you are, and perhaps why people should care what you say?
Sure. Well, thanks, Alex. It's a pleasure and honor to be here, and it's a fantastic event, and I'm glad to see a large bunch of folks that stuck it out to the end for this talk. So I was fortunate. I had a 4-year ROTC scholarship to Penn. I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering. The Army sent me overseas to do signal corps engineering projects. So I did a lot of strategic comm projects in Europe. I ended up working in Army Space Command. I commanded a satellite ground station, war trace to the Joint Chiefs. I spent some time at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The Army ultimately sent me to get a master's in mechanical engineering, a master's in strategic studies, graduate work in computer science. I was on track to stay in, but I decided that I wanted to pursue more of a technical career. So I got out and ended up working at Bell Labs, which was a fantastic place. Unfortunately, I was there during the trivestiture that folks may be familiar with, where the company got split up. I left Bell Labs and ended up working in Lockheed Missiles and Space. I worked at Northrop Grumman. I've ran strategic technology programs in the defense industry, worked for a lot of the three-letter agencies, ultimately was a deputy chief of staff or deputy CTO for a $2 billion company. I was a vice president general manager of a Northern Virginia-based R&D firm. I stayed in the military, in the reserve. I commanded at every grade level through brigade. I was fortunate to stand up the Army's newest expeditionary MI brigade. I was the deputy chief of staff for a combatant command. Ultimately, this experience sort of combined to give me the opportunity to come in and advise Army Futures Command, the largest reorganization in the Army Reserve since really 1973, on how the Army could be more effective. And my last assignment was involved with the UAP task force, which maybe is the most apropos for this discussion.
And there you go.
Nice, Commander. Nice.
Well, I told you I was going to be transitioning through the course of the show.
Yeah.
If the alien glass is upset, I can only imagine what's going to be in the chat on this.
God, I can almost see him doing ballet right now,
It's funny you would say that, Don, because
the tutu, yeah.
Yeah, well, don't let's not let fantasies reign too far out of control on the show, gentlemen. Save that for like the post-show and pre-show game. No, what I was getting at was, Don, you said ballet, and there have been people that said that,
or maybe ballet. Who knows?
Ballet, yeah, it could be ballet, depending on where you're from and how you say it. But up here, we call it ballet. But I have read on a Reddit post when I was doing some prep for this that some people said, well, obviously, David Grosh was the Black Swan event on the UAP disclosure, and Colonel Nell coming in to explain his perspective on that and to put the legitimacy is the explanation of why we don't have disclosure and why we may be going where we're going with disclosure. So I thought it was an interesting remark that you made. Chris?
Well, first of all, he worked closely with Lou Elizondo and David Grush. He was on the UAP task force, worked with these guys, and he, in other readings and stuff that I've read on him, he was one of their bosses. I can't remember which one,
right,
but he was one of their bosses. He has above top secret clearance, White House clearance. And he does mention that David Grush has a White House clearance, and that's pretty high when your top secret clearance can include the White House. So that puts a lot of credibility on Grush. And this guy comes out and says disclosure's there. And they're just doing it in a way that we don't get affected and we don't start asking the secondary questions. Because in some of the later videos, you'll see when he talks about disclosure, he'll say, hey, listen, when we talk about this, the U.S. government's worried about the secondary questions. Because as people have said, there's nothing we can do about these guys. There's nothing we can do about their crafts. We can't stop them. If they want to, take us on, they're going to do it. And, whether they're under the water or in the air, there is a problem with them almost colliding with our aircraft up there, but we can't do anything about it. And that's one of the biggest things that he put out in Admiral Tim Gallaudet. I hope I'm not butchering his name.
Gallaudet.
Thank you. And so these two guys are basically giving you disclosure. I mean, you got an admiral telling you, hey, this stuff is all real. We got retrieval and everything else. And you got this guy who's got impeccable credentials saying they're here. They're here.
Well, that was the talk on the tough streets of Pine Bush this past weekend. This came up. I tested the waters with the good colonel's name, the major's name, Major Grush. I threw those out, and very interesting. I heard two different conversations that I had, and this was not. I did not drink any alcohol. I bought alcohol. It's a very interesting story. There's a couple local distilleries in New York that were there as part of the festival. And since I had to drive, obviously I wasn't going to sample. They're excellent, by the way. And my compliments to both distilleries. But folks there were saying that, well, it just seems obvious to me that we probably have extraterrestrials here amongst us. And now this is fairly calm conversation. There wasn't any kind of excitement. There was almost like a resignation that it seemed to make sense to these folks that this is where we're at.
If I just may say real short, he actually talks about that we've been receiving signals from these guys, but we're not transmitting signals back to them, which was very interesting with what he was saying, that SETI has, I guess, picked up signals from them, or somebody has picked up signals from them. But the way our technology is, we're not sending signals back.
That's our technology now. We have sent out TV broadcasts, and missile, I forget what it is, something about missile.
Yeah, missile defense.
Yeah. But right now we have, different types of technology that we've grown into, which I'm sure a lot of species in our universe have, gone through different phases of technology.
I believe that, and I certainly have my very own ideas about all of this, but I have no doubt, and I'm sure probably you guys would agree with me, that someone, not human, not Homo sapiens sapien, but someone has been here as long as, well, before the humans came on the scene, going back possibly 450,000 years ago. And when you say disclosure is coming, it's happening right now. Look, guys, there's never been any doubt that something has been going on since the end of the Second World War, okay? And it really ramped up in 47 with Roswell. Then it went into hyperdrive in 52 over Washington, D.C. We, at that time, were losing dozens of aircraft. back in 1991 when Dr. Marina Popovich, a retired Red Air Force colonel who had been married to General Pavel Popovich, the first human being to ever rendezvous with another spacecraft in orbit back in 62, came over. I was instrumental in getting her on her first series of television broadcasts. This, of course, was after the Iron Curtain fell. Everybody was still saying glasnost, openness, openness. And I interviewed her over an entire weekend down in Arizona because she was also giving some talks down there. The bottom line was, she told me that the former Soviet Union had lost dozens, if not hundreds, of aircraft trying to chase these things, and in some cases, trying to shoot them down. So yeah, they've been around. Their technology is bar none. And I think more than one group is here, as many as perhaps 5 or 6. And the bottom line is, and this is something I've been told repeatedly over the last 3.5 decades, that there's at least one group of ETs that are here that don't care for us at all. Okay, for whatever reason. I think I might know why, but that's beside the point. But there are others here that have basically allegedly been holding them in check. So, you know, when push comes to shove, there's a segment of the American government, primarily from the intelligence side of things, that are still bound and determined that they'll never release the crown jewels, ever. So it's a push and shove, kind of like our overall political climate today.
Chris, tell me what you think is the most compelling part of the Karl Nell presentation.
Well, I will say that this part right here that I'm going to play.
So, Karl, here's the $1 million question. Do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
Right. So non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing. And there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that.
And so, Karl, that is quite a bold statement. I'm wondering, and I'm curious, how confident are you that that is true?
There's zero doubt.
And Karl, what evidence have you seen? What was the moment where you developed this level of conviction? Because what you're saying is extremely consequential and very important. And I know that a lot of people here, even perhaps, may not believe that statement.
Right. Well, probably a better way to ask that is, how can the folks in the audience come to the, a common understanding of what this phenomenon is? And so there's sort of two tracks here. One is from first principles, and another is actually from the data. So let's take a look at the data. So we can look at some folks that have very high level access to information, like Paul Hellyer, who is the defense chief for Canada, has come out and said the same thing. We can look at Ham Eshed, the head of Israel's, or former head of Israel's Space Force, has said the same thing. Chris Mellon, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Intel, SAPCO, has essentially said the same thing. Lou Elizondo has said the same thing. David Grush has said the same thing. David Grush cleared for presidentially level material. So you're looking at people that are in a position to know this, and they're telling you the same thing.
So there you go, Commander.
Martin.
Go ahead, Martin. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I raised my hand. I watched that like a day after or something when that was interview, and I was really excited. I mean, the guy is amazing. What a background, the things that he's done, the positions he's held, and all that. But when he asked him the question, what makes you think this? And then he goes on to say, oh, Elizondo and blah, blah, blah. To me, I think it's horseshit. And I'm sorry to disappoint everyone that's listening here. Probably a lot of people are going to be upset at me. But it's like, we're hearing enough of this shit. I want to hear the real stuff, the firsthand witness stuff. I don't want to hear, oh, he has a real high level of clearance. He has this, he has that. And I'm just telling you, the reason I'm ranting here is I was really excited, and then I felt let down as soon as the second part of that conversation ended. So I feel very disappointed because it's no further ahead than David Grush or anyone else out there that has talked about this. It's just not moving the needle. It's exciting, but then it's just like, it's a false flag. It's a nothing burger, whatever you want to say. It's all based again on secondhand stuff. And I got very disappointed on that because I thought this guy was like, wow, this is really someone special talking about it. It doesn't make it any more clear or any more true because he heard it from other people.
Let me pose a question here. Martin, I tend to agree with you because, I take a pretty dim view on this because at this point, what I want is what you are you're saying with a lot more elegance. You come on, you're going to do this. Credentials speak a lot. Obviously, he confirms a lot of what we heard from Major Grouch. I agree, but give me the something that links to it. Agreed. The possibility here, though, that I think is that we may have factions fighting, and everyone's trying to play within the rules of the game. Still, they're still trying to maintain pensions and job positions and going on. What I find interesting with someone like Colonel Nell is that obviously he's still very active in the employment world. He's still active, drawing probably some kind of paycheck in there, and he's able to not be dismissed as being crazy or what he's talking about. And that's a big change. That is a big change. And I, on a very personal level, when I tell people, hey, you ought to watch the show tonight, because a lot of people I work with know about the show, and I disclose my activities with this so that there's no surprise. That's why I'm always very careful what I say, and I always preface, open source and all those kind of things. So that's a step forward. But here's the question I'm going to pose to my my co-host here. I am now convinced that we have a very good chance, as part of what we're seeing as we come to the apex of the election, much upheaval on the globe, a lot of change, that not the whole egg, but a good portion of disclosure, something significant will be leveled, possibly as a false flag, possibly as a diversion, whatever. But I think we may see because I me, gentlemen, I've talked about it for years. All our information is weaponized. Everything that we had as an institution is on its side. Not necessarily all bad. I tend to take a negative view of some of the changes that we have, no doubt. But I really think that if you are looking to continue to cause the change, this could be the one. And I see a lot of stuff coming to the forefront that makes me think that we may be approaching a point where someone slips something just for the factor of either to turn it to finally get to where we need to go or burn it all down. Thoughts?
I'll go first. I kind of have a terrifying suspicion that there are those right now who are more than willing to burn it all down. Okay. Hey, things are really iffy right now. It's been a roller coaster ride. I mean, now I'm not taking any side one way or the other, but who in the hell would have ever believed that we would prosecute a former president of the United States in a state court and convict him apparently over simple political reasons. Not any crime that the guy committed. Hell, nobody's even been able to name a freaking crime. All right? But they did it nonetheless. And they're going to be sentencing him right prior to the Republican convention. Now, look, there are a lot of people out there that are very upset about that. And there are other people out there that could care less one way or the other. So I think that if they were to dump a UFO UAP secret, which incidentally I don't believe, not a real one anyway, I think it would be to derail that aspect of it, the domestic part of it. God knows the foreign parts of it, what's happening overseas is crazy as crazy can be. We've got Hamas terrorists demonstrating on college campuses across the United States. We've had close to 11 million undocumented people flood into this country without an inkling of who the hell any of them are. Hey, buddy, we're ripe for a bloody nose. That's my say.
Well, I hear you, Don. I don't disagree that the turmoil are up. I see things in a slightly different scale of the amount of worldwide, global. He jumped off. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm waiting. Hopefully he'll pop back in. I think that when you look at the kind of economic precipice we are tilting on, I just see it as a really good opportunity to cast everyone's attention to something else. If you hold this information and it's slipping out and you can't control it, now you're gonna try to control the release. That's how I look at it. And when we get to some of the things that you had sent earlier this week on your latest paper, I think that will illustrate it. Chris, what do you think?
Well, you got to remember, because of his background, because of his clearance, he has to go in front of a board or a inspector general to be able to discuss what he's going to say publicly.
Sure.
So before he goes to the SALT conference, they're going to say to him, okay, what are you going to say? Well, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about that. And they're going to say to him, no, you can't talk about this. No, you can't talk about that. And one of the things that's interesting is that we all want to see proof. We're dying to see proof, like Martin said. And I understand what Martin said. I respectfully disagree with some of what he's saying. Some of what he's saying is correct. But you're not going to be able to show classified information. They're not going to let you do that. I mean, you may be able to talk about it in certain respects, but there are certain things that they're going to say, no, you're not going to show that piece of paper. No, you're not going to show that material. No, you're not going to show that. And there's reasons behind that. One is because how they collect that information. Two, how they transmit that information. And three, basically, when we start showing stuff like that, our foreign adversaries couldn't be able to do that. Now, do I want to see more information from this guy than what he's given? Yes, but, Lou Elizondo said this perfectly once before. He says, you have to do disclosure piece by piece by piece. We're not ready to handle it all at one time. And you're never going to have the president come out and say, well, yeah, there's extraterrestrials here, because but he's going to have to say there's extraterrestrials out here and there's nothing we can do about it. And they are so advanced, more advanced than us, that we can't stop them if they do everything. What president's going to want to say that? What president's going to say, I'm sorry, folks, I don't have the ability, our military doesn't have the ability to stop them if they do something nefarious.
Well, all as far as excellent points. No real disagreement. A couple questions that came up in chat and some research. Question came up in chat, something I couldn't find this week. Has Colonel Nell sat before Congress? I could find nothing where he was sworn in front of Congress. So that throws an interesting question to me. Why not? Why did the major show up and not the colonel?
Well, that does pose an interesting question, Cobra. But the question, maybe he wasn't authorized to talk at that time. You know, if a commanding general comes down and tells a colonel, you're not going to speak to Congress. You're not going to speak to Congress.
Wait, he wasn't on active duty. He hasn't been on active duty for quite a while. He's been working in private industry for a long time and whatever else he's doing with the government.
Yeah, but he's still got a clearance.
I have a clearance as well, Chris.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that there's ways of stopping a person from talking. You know that, Commander.
Then what changed? Why does he come out after Grosh?
That's the $1 million question. I can't.
I find that interesting. I find that it's interesting that he made the statements that he made, which I think are very powerful statements, and I think he lends a lot of credibility to what he says is true.
Well, I also think they're dealing with at least two factions, gentlemen. We've got a faction that is in favor of disclosure, at least in part, and we've got another faction of folks that would just as soon go to the grave before they release anything. Now, look, who, other than the intelligence agencies, who has been the most obstinate from day one? Since 2017, when former Senator Harry Reid came out with his press conference. You had the Navy talking, you had this talk, that guy talk. Hell, even NASA chimed in at some point. But the WHO has never said a freaking word about any of it except to deny. The very people that were supposed to be handling this from the get-go, the United States Air Force.
Right.
Where the hell have the Air Force? Where have they been? They're locked down. And you know some of the senior leadership in the United States Air Force has some kind of an idea of what has been going on. And they've just sat back on their hands and watched the dog and pony show.
Hard for me to dispute that. There's really nothing you can point to. I mean, there's interesting things that come up when you talk about that, you know, for up until I think the last maybe 10 years, maybe a little bit less, there was training for future Air Force officers at the academy that included what to do if an extraterrestrial contact was made in a public setting, how to handle it.
Back in 1972.
Right.
I've got the entire thing. As a matter of fact, when I got my hands on that back about 1987, okay, I typed the whole damn thing out, everything from top to bottom, and put it on the Paranet computer BBS system that incidentally went around the world. You can still probably find it online. But yeah, that was taken directly from the Air Force Academy textbook, physics textbook. You bet.
You know what I'd like to do, if it's okay, Cobra? I'd like to play that one video I got, or actually there's two videos of disclosure from Nell, and see what people think. Okay,
it might run us up to the break. Just remember to stay with us. KGRA TV Radio, UAP Crossfire.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you have absolute conviction that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet, that there are factions within our own government that know about this, yet we still don't have a plan, and they may represent a security issue. This may pose a threat to humans. yet you still believe that we should disclose. Is that right?
Correct, right. So there's really three reasons that trump all those others. And those others are basically valid, like I said. So the first issue is the moral right. The government exists for and by the people. And so the nature of reality is fundamentally not government information. People have a right to know the world in which we live, and the pursuit of happiness requires that knowledge. So that's sort of the first kind of overarching philosophical foundation for this. But, as a corollary to that, if there are misdeeds that were done, then they need to be remediated. If there's lack of proper oversight, which is suggested by some of the whistleblowers, that needs to be remediated. So the first issue is the moral issue. The second issue is being in a reactive mode is never preferable to being in a proactive mode. So reactive mode is basically trying to prevent disclosure. But failing that, you might get a situation where you have catastrophic disclosure that creates all the problems that you were trying to prevent. So a more balanced middle path of controlled disclosure is the best way to do this, which is, again, an argument for some amount of disclosure. And the third part is simply societal advance and global competitiveness. More brain trust needs to be brought into this topic in order to make progress and to improve society. And so all three of those things together trump the 6 other reasons for non-disclosure.
I think it's really powerful what he says there. Obviously, I have a similar variation to that.
What's your feeling about that, Xander?
Say again?
What's your feeling about that, though?
I think he's spot on. I think if you've been fibbing, if you've been holding back under our political system, under our form of government, there's a reckoning that has to answer that. So you've got a lot of people that have continued the lie, as I see it. Then you have the concern of, well, if we're going to have some of it, let's control it. If the flood waters are getting higher, we're going to release more water out of the dam, right? Because we're going to try to control it. But we're trying to control nature. We're trying to control the inevitable, and we're not very successful at that.
Well,
and then the last part is, if it completely comes out of control, if it's completely explosive, and it doesn't have anything, how does that work out? What's the end result of that?
It's hard to say, because I think there's so many factions about disclosure that we have to look at. One of the things that I truly believe is one of the reasons they have a hard time, and I agree with what Don was saying about some people want to burn it all down, is because there's a lot of fraud to it. So when there's fraud to it, people are going to hide that because they have nefarious reasons, because they're making a lot of money. They're making a boatload of money off these projects that they don't want the gravy train to end. So, he says that. He says there is a possibility that a lot of money has gone in a bad direction.
But look at it past the money part of it. I'm not disagreeing with you, Chris, but think about when people start to think about the following things I'm going to bring up. We now have had access, or we have had exposure or some level of contact that allows us to transition to a different energy source. Now, I have talked to countless people over the years that have claimed that when they have fallen upon a discovery, that they were brought to their knees, taken out of the marketplace, because the folks that are running the world economy right now did not want to change from that economy. That when we run out of oil or whatever, we'll move to something else. But it's going to be an orderly transition, and those that are kind of running that portion of it. What happens when we find out that there are medical advances that have been held back because we wanted an orderly transition to whatever that means? What the hell do you think most people are going to react?
They're going to react. They're going to react in a terrible way.
We got people upset when we found out things about $300 toilet seats. And I've explained that in the past, how that happens when you reckon it. I'm not defending it, but when you tally up the cost, every item gets put against it. And I think our audience is sophisticated to know that a lot of projects cover other projects that we don't want people to know what we're working on. And that's good sense. It's sort of like when people say, hey, that stealth airplane went down. Congresswoman Representative Mace. It's a stealth airplane and we don't know where it's at. Well, thank God we don't know where it's at. That's the reason why we spent $35 billion to build the damn thing. You're not supposed to be able to easily find it.
Don, what do you think before the show goes to break?
Well, I gotta say that look, I'll be the first to admit I'm very jaded about much of this. I've been here, I've done that time after time after time, and I have no faith, okay, that the government is going to come clean. Our government is, in my opinion, Don Ecker's opinion, has been taken from us, and we're not going to be able to get it back very easily, gentlemen.
I think that with disclosure, I think more and more people are coming out, admirals, military people, government people. There was stuff, but I really truly believe that the intelligence community wants to keep this dead. I think the main force against disclosure is the intelligence community. From everything I've read and seen, what do you think, Commander?
I don't disagree. It's a hard label for me to swallow when you say that, but it does give a good place to look. We have multiple layers of intelligence or security related activities that control and is what it's all about. And I think most start out with very good intentions. The protection, the security of the country, the security of what's going on, security of intellectual property, breakthroughs, achievements, plus the ability, and then it extends out into other areas. And the next thing you know, what we prize and what we praise of the D-Day type invasion was to preserve our freedom and liberty, and you start to lose that. And then if you have certain situations that come up, this is one that I always worry about, you do have a vast majority of people that are willing to trade off liberty, freedom for security. And then you find out, well, you don't really have security and you can't get your freedom back, as Don is saying. You can't get that back. I think we've gone down this road for so long on the basis that our security and our stability, we couldn't handle it.
The state of Hawaii nullified in Hawaii the Second Amendment. Are you aware of that?
I wasn't aware of that, no.
The state Supreme Court, okay, a guy was picked up having a firearm, and the guy was a legal citizen. He wasn't doing it. He just had it on for protection, was arrested. And the court basically decided, he was convicted. He took it up to the state Supreme Court, and they said because of Hawaiian culture, the aloha thing, and all this happy bullshit, we don't honor the Second Amendment in the state.
Don, can you hold that thought for a minute? Because we got to go to break, and we'll pick it up after the break.
We're right back. Welcome back to UAP Crossfire.
We are back, and I'd like to, if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to just play this other video that I got from the Colonel and just get your opinion of it.
I think that it's imperative that the United States leads on the disclosure efforts.
So this is an interesting question, too, because this is a global phenomenon, and it's affecting other countries just like the United States. The reporting on this is clear over decades. Other countries have reported this stuff. And not only that, the Vatican has come out and made statements that reference or tangentially reference this topic. So organized religion has a say in this topic as well. So it's really a whole of planet, whole of humanity problem. And so the U.S. has got its role to play, but these other countries have their role to play, and it would behoove us to recognize that U.S. action can be preempted by another party, and it would be probably more conducive to work collectively.
So I ask you, gentlemen, now we know that other countries have come out and said they've had UFO experiences. Other countries have even come out and said that they're here. Do you think the U.S. should take the first role and do this, or what do you think, Commander?
Well, yes, but I live under a different time and place in my mind what the United States is. The bastion of freedom, the greatest written document, the U.S. Constitution. I think yes, I think we should be doing that. I also think, though, what the good Colonel has just spoke to there touches upon some things that we have been speaking about tonight and other shows. There was an organized suppression control of this information, and a lot of world governments were involved in that, probably in the laydown and the breakdown from World War II. How appropriate for the anniversary of the show that we're on. So you have a situation that is going to cause a lot of tremors. Now, I think European nations are probably going to be pretty chill with it coming out. I don't think that it's going to be as upsetting. They've moved away from organized religion in great numbers, from the ancestral Europeans. I don't think Islam seems to embrace an understanding of extraterrestrials a lot easier than a lot of the other faiths. So I don't think Europe's going to have a lot of issues. There may be some questions, but they move and they change government differently. For us not to be leading on this when we know this, and we were probably a major leadership role because of how we landed out of World War II, does put I think the responsibility on us to be the leaders on trying to put the truth out there and square up the bill of all the best intentions of the world trying to save people from themselves. Remember, we're battling with a lot of other things that were going on in the world. Communism versus non-communism, for lack of a better term, wrestling with weapons of mass destruction at a level that we didn't quite comprehend what they could do. A lot of that stuff comes to tally on this. So yes, I think we should have a lead role in it. And I think he's touching upon probably many of the things that are falling into place that is causing different factions to fight on how this is going to come out.
Don, the Vatican has said that we have to acknowledge or look at possibility of life on other planets. Other countries have said it. Do you think the U.S. should take a major role in this, or just kind of sit back and let the other countries do it?
Absolutely, we should take a major role. But, okay, there's that but. What are the Russians going to say? What are the Chinese going to say? And if you get right down to it, Europe, in many respects, over the decades, okay, have in many ways shown ingratitude for what we did in the First and Second World War. Not always, but we all know that that's been a truism. And when you look at nations like Germany, the UK, France, okay, hell, Italy and Spain, they're all first world nations. And I'm sure their militaries and their scientific establishment have not been sitting on their heels with this. Now, probably, they would follow the American lead, Europe. But when it comes to the Russians, the Iranians, the Chinese, hell, the North Koreans, no, I don't see that. But, once again, if you know your history, all right, we can go back 6 7,000 years ago to our first recognized civilization, Sumeria. And if you know anything about Sumeria, you know it was a collection of city-states, each with their own rulers, each with their own militaries, and each with their own gods. And when you really dig into that, you will see that those gods, those Sumerian Anunnaki entities, didn't get along with each other. Okay? There's a hell of a lot to suggest that they were not gods. They presented themselves as gods, but they were extremely technologically advanced entities, whatever the hell they were. And they fought with each other. And which meant what? A lot of divisiveness, a lot of conflict, a lot of chaos. So I in many ways see that could be happening right now. Now, earlier on, Commander Cobra, you said at the very beginning of the show, you didn't come right out and say it, but you indicated you believe that they are here with us right now. Well, I happen to think you are totally 1,000,000% correct. They are. They're walking among us. And what the hell they're doing is anybody's guess. But I totally agree with that. So if you get right down to it, guys, I think in many regards, this crapshoot has been rigged from the beginning.
What do you think of that, Commander?
I just want Don to define the crapshoot a little bit. How we set everything up, where we are now, since the 40s. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind at this point there is a struggle on how control is going to be yielded or shared or released. And it's of our own doing. And it
well, you know, the other day, Vladimir Putin once again rattled the nuclear saber. Okay, talking about the American government sending more arms and munitions, okay, to the Ukraine, and he rattled the saber. Now, what I would find interesting is whether he was just talking the talk, or at some point, if he's willing to walk the walk. And if he did, what would our visitors upstairs have to say about that?
Right.
That would be a fascinating thing.
Well, if you guys are saying that they're here, let's put it this way. Everybody's saying that they're here. You know, there's scientists in Israel that says they're walking among us. Military people are saying they're walking among us. Other people are saying. So if we start a nuclear thing, they're going to go down the hill just as much as we are. So, I mean, if they are here and they see wars being blasted all over this planet, either they're going to do something, or they're going to leave. One of the two. My point, Chris, is I don't think they would allow it to happen if it got that serious. Hey, how many times have we been told, and reports have come out where they have flown into ICBM sites and shut the damn flights down.
Right.
To the point where they even had to replace missiles. Whatever the hell they did it good.
All right, this
now,
leads me
in
to
Vietnam, there was a fear earlier on in the war that the Chinese communists would become involved like they did in Korea. SF, Special Forces, okay, and they had teams in Okinawa in the first SF group. Special Forces had specialized personnel that were going to jump into, well, depending upon where the Chinese were coming from, with man-portable nuclear weapons. Okay? Now, thank God that never happened. The Chinese never came in mass. But we were ready. Now, you think about that. That was 50, 60 years ago, damn near. What do they have today after 60 years of technological development that could do the same thing? Do you remember the Davy Crockett system?
Sure do.
Yeah.
There was a nuclear device that they could basically shoot from a recoilless rifle to impede Soviet tanks coming through the Fulda Gap in Europe. Okay. Now, they weren't by ICBM standards that big. Maybe 100 kilotons, maybe 150 kilotons, but it was enough to zap the tanks. They had devices which, from what I understand, have since been gotten rid of, that they could set off to kill just the people and not the towns, the buildings, or other things. Okay. I think it was a neutron, if I remember correctly.
Neutron bomb, that's correct. Lethal radiation, very low blast.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, now, I'm sure our friendly visitors have taken all that into account. So God only knows what might be on their agenda if push comes to shove.
Don,
All
I
right,
want
let
to
me
do this
ask you
question. Hold on one second. There's a question that was in chat. Don, do you think that they are just observing us, or are they influencing us, or both?
Which group?
Our alien visitors.
Which group?
Well, that's okay. All groups.
I think there are some that are here that are very benign and kindly disposed to us. Now, look, I'm not pulling this out of my butt. All right. This has been over 30 years of diving deep into this crapola. All right. But there are some that are simply, they want to come by and see the animals at the zoo. And there are others that may be working hand in glove with certain governments. And then there's at least one group, possibly two, that don't like the human race. Now, that's what I think is on the agenda. So, you know, it's hard to say what their ultimate agenda is. But up to this point, thank God, it has not proven to be, other than a few instances, and there have been a few, where open hostility has been displayed. Look, this paper I wrote on disclosure, okay, KGRA had it up on their website. It's called Disclosure, a dangle. What the hell did I call it? A dangle out of reach, just out of reach. Disclosure is because there is a core secret to the overall UFO phenomenon. And that core secret is protected by an SAP, a special access program. And I could go on and on about that, but this show is not about that tonight. The fact of the matter is, okay, unless you have a need to know, you never will. And here's something else a lot of people may not realize. It's not just the government that's working on this stuff. They have farmed it out to corporations, okay? Corporations that are not accountable to any goddamn buddy. Nobody. I don't know what their contract stated, but boy, they got a tight one. And the bottom line is, no, we're not going to find out. And who's going to stop us from finding out? The DIA, the NRO, the NSA, the CIA, the Girl Scouts of America, okay? That's the bottom line.
All right, so let me ask you a question, Don, and also Commander. If they're walking among us and we're having all these problems and stuff, why don't they take the initiative and say, hey, we're not going to... There's a simple thing that could stop a lot of this. They could come out and say, we're here. You're not going to destroy this planet. We're not going to let you. Either straighten your act up or we're going to take measures.
The prime directive. Remember Star Trek? And I have no doubt that they have something like that in play. okay, where they will not overtly interfere. Now, maybe I'm full of it, Chris. Hey, I'll be the first to
but I
say.
mean, there's a reason why they haven't come out. I mean, if any time would be the perfect time for them to say we're here, would be now, because as you said, if we go into a world war, they're going to destroy this planet.
Do you remember what happened in 52?
What? I'd say that again.
Do you remember what happened in 52?
No,
The overflights of Washington. The overflights of Washington, D.C. Okay.
Yeah, okay, I remember that.
On 3 weekends, saucers flew into the nation's capital and went through all the restricted airspace there was. The Pentagon, the White House, you name it, they were there. They were sending a message. And do you remember what happened in Brussels in, what was it, 91, 92? The same thing, overflights in Brussels. They were being chased by F-16s, okay? They were sending a message. Now, what the message was, you guys best beware, but why they were sending it, that's the secret that I would like to know. Somebody pulled something. Hey, look, I've thought about this stuff for years, and I came up with the only thing that ever made sense to me. Cobra, do you agree with that?
I do, Don. It seems just inconsistent to me, and that's what I think Chris is kind of pointing toward the way he asked the question. How long do we go? How far do we go to the brink? Of course, what we know is not the full story. It's taken years for people like you both to dig into reports, put things together. I think there's another element to it that is touched upon, what Colonel Nell was saying. We've talked about it endlessly on the show. Individually, we've talked about it on other shows. There is an evil or almost a religious good, bad, satanic versus godly kind of situation that often rises in this. Does that lead to some of the reasons?
Well, look,
rationally, it's hard for me to understand why we have, if our aliens are here, and I understand the Prime Directive kind of indication, but it doesn't make sense to me. It lacks logic to me. You're here, you're involved, you partially get involved, but you don't get involved. I don't get that.
You're not either. I don't believe you're dealing with a single entity.
Okay, but if you're a single entity, then why aren't they fighting each other with their superior technology, and we're just spectators? Okay,
they are.
Well, I'm not seeing that.
Where do you see it, Don? Because I got to agree with Commander on that. I don't see it.
STS-48, STS-48, Phobos 2, okay, and other things that came out that I don't have any solid information on. But we were getting reports at UFO Magazine from a Russian journalist, correspondent, a guy that was living over here in California by the name of Paul Stonehill. I haven't talked to Paul in years, but I'm pretty sure he's still around, where there were aerial battles being fought in the skies above Siberia. Now, Siberia is a pretty lonely spot, okay? That's not where somebody would go for a vacation. And it's been said, and this has come from Russian researchers, that they believed, much like we believe certain areas in Alaska, off Santa Monica, other places have underground ET facilities, that they also had underground facilities in Siberia. And that's a big, big chunk of real estate. Now, can I prove that? No, I can't. Okay. It's strictly second or even third-hand stories, but it is something to consider.
Well, I can see your point with that, but what I just don't understand why these guys are, after all the stuff that they've seen what we've done, because you got to remember, we started seeing things where we publicly set out in the 40s during World War II. They had the Foo Fighters, and we saw stuff in Korea. We saw stuff, and they constantly see us in battle where we're destroying things here. And we're going that direction where we may lose the civilization. And if we lose it, we might lose them too if they're here walking among us.
Well, we've lost it before, Chris.
Well, of course we have. And actually, Admiral Tim there says that in one of the videos. He talks about, that civilizations have been lost here on Earth for almost the same reasons of what's happening now. And we're going in that direction. But, we all kind of think, well, if we go that far, maybe they'll stop us. But they haven't stopped it in the past. Why would they stop it in the future?
How do you know that?
What's that?
How do you know that?
Well, we don't know. But I mean, the track record shows that they don't get involved. They don't stop stuff.
Well, not publicly at any rate.
What's that?
Not publicly.
No, but I mean, I'd like to see. I think what we're heading for is a disaster, and if we head for this disaster, somebody's got to pull us out of the fire, and we're not doing it. Why not? Why not these people who are so much more advanced than us?
Well, there's another possibility. Maybe they don't quite care enough. But there is a tremendous amount of circumstantial evidence that the human race, you and I, Commander Cobra, everybody else, was a designed race. Somebody designed us, okay, and created us. I think originally to be a slave race. But then we got too big, too unruly, and what have you. And those people left for a while. Then we had some things like the Ice Age, the end of the Ice Age, Younger Dryas, where the face of the entire planet changed drastically and dramatically. Okay, God only knows how many uncounted millions of people and animals died. It wasn't too long ago in the scheme of things. We had great woolly mammoths running around. We had saber-toothed cats. We had short-faced cave bears, okay, which will put a grizzly to sleep in a hot second. And the bottom line is suddenly, in the blink of an eye, so to speak, they disappeared. What happened to them? They were wiped out. Now, if you think about that, I mean, that's some pretty crazy stuff. But something happened. Now, who's to say they didn't have a hand in it? I don't know.
Commander, what's your thoughts?
Well, I tend to be, and it's a hot topic in the chat room as I've been scanning remarks. I tend to follow and believe in the record that's in the Bible. I think a lot of things fit in both directions on that. I think it's a possibility that we've had turnovers and changes. I look at the Bible as a book of faith with a lot of accurate representations, but it's flawed because it's put down by man. And that's ultimately my issue with everything that happens. The creation story, as Don puts it, fits into a number of areas, fits into a number of cultural traditions, histories, interpretations. Again, my problem that I keep constantly coming up with is what you're wrestling with, Chris. Advanced technology. It almost feels like, well, if these entities and beings are amongst us, and they have the ability to cloak themselves to the point that we're not readily seeing them, they make these gestures for us to knock it off and get it together. That maybe they've had secret in-league meetings with different governments. They have to be watching and realizing whatever was agreed to, is it working? Or maybe it's working real well. I don't know how to phrase that. But we are teetering, to me, it seems to be on a precipice of how this is going to shake out. So are we repeating as the Hindus say, we're on the wheel, and this cycle, the rotation of the wheel, we're coming to this part where we destroy and then get ready to recreate? Is that what's going to happen? Is that what happened repeatedly over on there? I don't know.
Yep.
I have to look at it and step back and try to focus on the small pieces because I can't quite explain the big ones. I often with things that Don brings out, my gut tends to agree with a lot of how he lays it out, but I fall back on small pieces.
He lays it out very well, but the problem I'm wrestling with, and I truly admit this, is that we see us going down a path of no return, and we know for a fact. I mean, we know that there's other civilizations that lived and died on this planet. I mean, most people will tell you that. And Don says that, we were created as a slave race. But now you brought up the part of a spiritual part of that. So, I mean, that's totally different connections. Am I right on that? I mean, you're saying we were created as a slave race, and yet there's a spiritual component that is very strong in our population, very strong in people's faith and belief, that's not jiving what Don is saying. Am I right on that, Don?
Okay. Now, we're dealing, in my opinion, all right, we're dealing with two different phenomena. We're dealing, I believe, with a nuts and bolts phenomenon where there is a high technology that somebody developed that can allow them to go from their star to our star. But then, and this is the fly in the buttermilk, there is another possibility that someone or something discovered interdimensional travel from one universe to another. Okay? I happen to think that both are equally viable, and we may very well be dealing with both. Hey, let's not forget, very quickly, Elizondo, when he was still talking to me, okay, told me that he had been pulled aside by a senior Pentagon flag rank officer that said, we know what this phenomena is, and I'm telling you to stay away from it. Why? Because it's satanic. It's demonic. There were apparently a group known colloquially as the Collins Elite that believed all of this was a satanic deception. Now, hey, if you're a senior flag rank officer, your first duty is to the security of the nation you represent. And what, if you believe Elizondo, what he was saying was this guy was willing to turn a blind eye to this and try to ignore it. To me, that's more terrifying than if they were interdimensional or nuts and bolts.
True. And I think what you also point to is what has been alluded to and spoken about openly and not so openly, that agreements were made, signatures in the big book kind of stuff that's gone on between world governments and this evil satanic element that's gone on. And if you take that stance, a lot of things kind of make sense, right? It explains the reticence to provide any information, the subterfuge on stuff that was on there, the reports being cast out and out, lying out and out, throwing people off the course. Now, if you take that and you look at where are we headed to a cataclysmic event?
I can just say that if we are, it would not come as a total surprise to me, and it pains me to say that. It truly does.
Well,
That's interesting.
as one that follows that does read the various good book texts that are out there, and I spent time in almost all of them. Almost all foretell a time that the Christian world uses the word tribulation, and it hasn't been more than a couple of times, but I've brought that up. Are we in that time now looking at that? I'm not talking about just pinpointing different parts of the events that go on. I'm looking at the total en masse situation that we're at as a group of people on this planet, and it does kind of fit at times. I remain hopeful, but as Don said, I'm not really surprised how that goes.
Interesting. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to bring up this admiral who's come out and said some amazing things on the Sean Ryan show. I want to play this first clip that I got and see what you think of it.
I get this email on the Navy's secret network, SIPRNet, and it's from my boss's operation officer. I was reporting to a 4-star admiral, U.S. Fleet Forces Command. His operations officer was a 2-star. And the email was sent to all the subordinate commanders. This is at least 20 flags and SESs. All the deputies are copied on it. And the title of it is Urgent Safety of Flight Issue. All caps. The body of the email said, if any of you know what these are, tell me ASAP. We are having numerous near midair collisions, and if we don't stop it, we're going to have to cancel the exercise.
Okay, so here's an admiral now saying that he got from his bosses a secure message saying that there's been almost mid-air collisions on this. How does this work into disclosure, Commander?
Well, first, the person talking, I don't know, I don't recognize.
He's Admiral Tim Ganault.
So that's the Admiral Tim Ganault.
Yeah.
And he referred to SIPRNet as the Navy SIPRNet. Interesting.
Correct.
That's incorrect. That's incorrect language, and it's highly incorrect for a flag officer to refer to it that way. That's a very weird way he described it. SIPRNet is a universally understood acronym for the secure network for passing email reports. There's a NIPRNet and there's a SIPRNet. So I'm thrown off immediately because it almost seemed like someone who was typing up messages or emails and sending them out. That threw me off. That's why I was a little thrown off by the way the Admiral reported that. That's interesting. I'm also thrown off by the mid-air collision portion of it. Superior technology that is being flown doesn't seem to me to be easily collided with. I can see our aircraft losing control trying to chase a superiorly moving or maneuvering aircraft, or I should say, I'll just use the term aircraft because I don't like the designation. But so that surprises me as well, the way that's phrased. You know, it's packaged as a sensational thing, where it lacks what you saw with Karl Nell, which tends to be a little bit more matter of fact what's going on. So if you take my stance on Tic Tac, and we have an interesting little Tic Tac piece that showed up right off Long Island when the Blue Angels were flying a very small clip of something that has a Tic Tac kind of look in the background, but it's very, very brief. I'm hoping that MUFON is able to spend some time looking at it and give some intel on that. It wouldn't surprise me if you follow my conclusion that it's disruptive technology. In fact, I'm laughing because it cracked me up when I was reading it in the chat. The Air Force, the reason the Air Force isn't talking because they're on submarines flying Tic Tac UAP. I love this audience is absolutely tremendous. I mean, even crapping all over me, they make me laugh, and they put good stuff into the comments. It's really good stuff. I can easily
Dan, what do you
disruptive.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I can easily see the disruptive power because we're doing things all the time to demonstrate to our enemies and our potential enemies not to do that. I just heard today 3 submarines all surfaced and went through the procedure. 3 U.S. submarines all surfaced and went through the procedures to launch at the same time all around the PRC, and they weren't seen until they popped up and did their thing, closed everything up and went down and disappeared again. Now that's a pretty strong signal. The neighbors want you to turn the music down. Okay. that's
You're right. You're right.
Now that is all subcontext to everything else that's going around us. And if you expand that out, have we all kind of broken up with the different groups of ETs that we have, different folks that are helping each one? Do we have this? I saw it in the chat, mutually assured destruction. Do we have, because we have everybody's linked up and we kind of know who's linked up with who, that we have this detente that maintains going out? Specifically to what he said, it does not surprise me that kind of a message would go out based just on the safety and just based on the fact of what they want to do during an exercise. That's 1. 2, it also alludes and it backs up because I'm obviously looking from my slant that there are elements that are out there that are constantly challenging capabilities. It's known that there are constantly checking and probing and working hard against our forces against our own forces. Our opposition forces are constantly testing and challenging it, partially to check technology, partially to keep our forces fighting well. That's why we're still flying 117s. 117s, which are supposed to have been retired over 10, 15 years. There's still a squadron or so of them flying. They show up at exercises. They're demonstrating, because of their stealth profile, how to combat other countries that might have stealth technology going against a carrier battle group going forward. So those things that he says in there are correct. They make sense to me. I think the tie-in to extraterrestrial is not hard to make. I think it's a fair thing to put in there. But there's interesting things in the Admiral's statement that threw me off right from the start.
Okay, Don, I want to play this other video, and then I'd like to get a comment from you about this video.
Project Beta. Project Beta, the story of Paul Benowitz and the evolution of the modern UFO myth. And what it's about is a civilian physicist who was on contract to work for the Air Force, I believe. He was one of these people who was a civilian researcher in the UAP in the New Mexico area where that's a hot spot. And the Air Force deliberately deceived him and exploited him and even broke into his house to make him believe that there was going to be an imminent alien invasion. He basically nearly went crazy. And the Air Force did that deliberately. And what? The main perpetrator in the Air Force is a guy named Richard Doty. He's quite well known in the UAP circles. And that's what he did. And I can see that happening right now.
Can you see that happening right now, Don?
Oh, hell yes. I can. Hey, look, there were people within the UFO community, all right, that jumped on the bandwagon of Richard Hoagland, the Mars guy. Okay, everybody, you guys know who Richard Hoagland is, right?
Yes.
Right after my appearance on Larry King Live on the STS-48 thing. Now, I knew Hoagland very well, and he called me up within a very short time after that. And 1992, we were in the midst of a presidential election. Okay. George H.W. Bush William Jefferson Clinton and Mr. Ross Perot. And Hoagland was bouncing off the wall, and he said, look, he said, I know what that was. I said, what are you talking about? He said, that was a Pentagon drone. They're getting ready to have a false flag operation of an alien invasion. And hey, Bush, now, the old man now, not the shrub. Bush is going to declare martial law, and they're going to do away with the election. And I said, Dick, let me suggest, buddy, you slow down a little bit. Let's wait and see how this plays out. And of course, we saw how it played out. But you see, this is, and Deuce will tell you, and not that you need to be told, but the powers that be, the spooks, the intel weenies, they look for those kind of things to design their little programs around. And I could see that happening in a hot second. Now, with Paul Benowitz, the guy didn't have all his facts completely correct. All right. Benowitz was working under contract for the Air Force, but it had nothing to do with UFOs or UAPs. That was in his private time. Benowitz had stumbled over some top secret tests that the Air Force were conducting, from what I understand, and hey, this was something I was really up on 25 years ago for the NSA. Now, what exactly they were doing out on their test range, Benowitz could literally climb up on his roof to view it. Now, it was a bit more. Now, I know you guys are aware of this because I've talked about it before, but there was a civilian UFO researcher by the name of Bill Moore, William Moore. Moore wrote the very first book on the Roswell event that was published in 80. He was also working for the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, okay, Jim and Coral Lorenzen's outfit, the very first UFO organization. And these spooks, Doty among them, approached Moore. Ultimately, he ended up working hand in glove with him, with Doty, and Doty gave fraudulent documents to Bill Moore, which he fed to Paul Benowitz, and all this other business, okay, about alien invasions and what have you. Benowitz was given a doctored computer that was donated by guess who?
You tell
J.
me.
Allen Hynek.
Okay.
Oh,
J. Allen Hynek. And this computer had been pre-programmed when he was grabbing these signals out of the air. They had him convinced they were alien transmissions, okay, coming from aliens who were getting ready to invade the planet. Oh, yeah, look, I don't want to get off on a tangent.
No, but are you saying J. Allen Hynek was part of this conspiracy?
That's right.
That's the first I heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So at this point, J. Allen Hynek was actually conspiring with the U.S. government on keeping disclosure.
He worked in connection with them after he retired from astronomy, although he did turn a leaf, so to speak, from being anti-UFO to pro-UFO. But not only him, not only Hynek, also Jacques Vallée.
That's interesting. Hey, Cobra, the question I have for you is, what they did to Benowitz is not only criminal, but pretty heinous. I mean, obviously, we might see this again. What's your thoughts on that?
okay. You get a whole bunch of things. First, I got to jump in. Skywalker OC. I didn't say that SIPRNet was the incorrect term. I've never heard it referred to as Navy SIPRNet. It's SIPRNet. It's NIPRNet. The entire DoD and the Coast Guard work on SIPR and NIPRNet. And applaud your 23 years in the silent service. Outstanding. If you'd like to take it offline, Commander Cobra, KGRDB at Gmail, or we can do it on, if you need to talk more secure, more than happy to straighten out what I'm saying. It throws me off when a purported flag officer is speaking in those terms and throws me off. Back to this subject. Again, this makes me a little bit uncertain. You're a flag officer. You know that this has gone on, and this is criminal activity. Plain and simple. It's a UCMJ violation what's gone on there. What that happened.
Sure.
And you're not trying to get that straightened out, but you come on and you talk in a program about it. The Air Force, the DOD has a long history of exploiting UFO interest, enthusiasm, researchers for a variety of reasons. The most widely purported part of it was as a means to protect experimental and advanced research that was being done, so that when people were reporting or seeing activity of advanced aircraft, especially the SR-71, which was one of the most prevalent that caused a lot of stirs in its original part, they were feeding into the UFO networks and conventions and personnel a belief that they were seeing something else. In the name of security, in the name of protection, in the name of fill in the blank, people will do very, very bad things to other people, believing they're doing the right thing. I don't agree with that, but they will do that. That's why we have cover-ups when things go wrong, when we have accidents, when we have mistakes that are made and people do not stand and face the music, and we cover it up. It happens horribly all the time. How many veteran things do we want to run the list down again that have gone on in experimentation and different things that have gone on? It's one thing to ask for volunteers in the military to perform a service. It's another one not to tell them and put them into experiments, then deny it, and then we fight and go over how we're going to care for them when we come on the backside of it.
Interesting.
So that kind of revelation is not a revelation to me. The fact that people see the light and come out at the end of it, like Mr. Hynek, God bless them for doing it. Hope they straightened everything out and they made right on what went wrong.
Okay, let's pivot a little bit. Don, I want to talk about the CIA base, a computer program ahead of its time.
Hey, you know what? I let me make a suggestion. This is simply a suggestion, but we really don't have enough time to do it.
Okay, we'll make it for another show. So, with that being said, I want to play this next video and get your opinions of this.
And you can tell they're obviously obfuscating. They are deliberately not saying what they know and saying things that are patently untrue.
Why are they putting out false information?
It's the policy at the top level of the executive branch that directs whether they want to disclose or not. It makes a lot of sense because, UFO people want to see it. But if you were Biden, would you want to tell the American public, hey, I can't keep our airspace safe. It's being visited by entities whose intent I don't understand and I can't control it. Same for our water space. Do you think you want to announce that to the American people on the verge of the election and say, I'm not doing my job, I can't keep y'all safe? I don't think so.
Do you think he's right, Cobra?
I think yes, but I don't always lay it at the feet of the executive. And obviously, every time we use the terms, it's upsetting to folks, but it's hard to separate the two. There is a deep-seated part of our government that is not responsive to voting. They are entrenched. They are a core part of how things are carried out. We have a Congress that has stepped back from their role of doing the legislative part of creating the laws and ensuring that those laws are being enforced and working part and parcel with the executive to go do that. So this all does fit in. Unfortunately, I can't strip the politics out of this particular part of it. I think that there are things that are withheld, even from the president, even from the White House. I think things are withheld from members of Congress, and I think there are certain elements that do have access, that do have understanding, probably by times of length in service, and it's all part of a game, and not in the nice term of the word game. It is a cabal that goes on.
The president is not read into this. Okay,
I
that's a
don't-
well-known fact. Bill Clinton proved it. Hell, even Barack Obama came out and said they were not, well, they didn't use the words, I wasn't read into the program. But the bottom line is they didn't have a need to know. Okay. Hey, presidents come, presidents go. The bureaucracy, however, that stays forever.
Yeah, I agree with that, Don. But here's a situation where people under the president are saying all these things. You would think that his cabinet or somebody in the White House would say, I want everything right here, right now. What are you guys talking about? Why is this colonel coming out?
All right,
Why is
well,
this
Chris,
Go ahead.
and Don, I'm going to need your help to pull the names in. Head of the DIA heads out, and he wants access, and he wants to see it. Say it again, please.
Thomas Wilson.
Okay.
Admiral.
That one I do know a little bit about. And he shows up, and pretty influential posting that he's at, a pretty important command. And he's told what, Don, at the door?
Sorry,
gracias.
your name's not on the bigot list.
You're not on the list.
Have a nice flight.
You're not on the list.
Yep.
Now, does that mean it goes back to an earlier remark that we made? It kind of fits that we have a bureaucratic core that is at the controls on most or part of this, that there have been agreements and allegiance made with other core groups and other governments, possibly extraterrestrial presence that's here. That makes sense. Then you take in the economic part of it, that we're playing around with technologies, we're trying to develop stuff. Then we're also trying to maintain the status quo because we want this transition to be orderly, because the upset to world markets, the upset to changing how we do business, literally, could change on the drop of a hat. There's been very small examples of this in the past. People that have been absolutely wiped out economically, financially, because they approached and they were going to unseat the way business was being done. Famous one is that guy Tucker. He came out, he had his revolutionary car, he had all these breakthrough ideas. There's a large contingent will tell you the guy was just a crackpot, completely insane, what he was talking about. And others will tell you this guy threatened everything that they had done, and he was going to upset the status quo so much he was going to cause business to come down. Someplace in between there is probably the truth. If someone's sitting on the ability for technology to change how we generate our power, how we physically live our lives, how we condition and we're able to maintain our bodies, and that comes out, and we know that people held back because of money, power, position, that someone made a decision that some are going to have and some are not, it's going to be sticks and stones time. You won't be able to control people on it. And now
it'll be a bad time, won't it?
And now the kitty cat's out of the bag. Now, in an instant, you'll have people across the globe able to see it on a handheld device.
Yeah.
Part of that is out of control. That's why we have as much as what we do being purported over our multimedia system of the internet and all the other features that we have out there. Because if you can't control it, you jam it with as much other information as you possibly can. And we just moving this ball.
Well, we got to stop it right there because that's the end of the show. Folks, thank you for very much being with us. As Commander Cobra and Don has always said, you are the greatest audience on the planet. For UAP Crossfire, we all bid you a good night.